Welcome to this week's Workshop Wednesday, where we're going to go through implementing consent for Google Analytics 4 in just a matter of minutes. We're actually going to hand this over to Manisha Mistry, one of our instructors at measurementmarketing.io, who also handles a lot of our clients and is basically our guru of all things that can be complicated, like BigQuery analytics, Canvas, consent, server side, all the things like that. So she will walk you through in a very simple steps of how to get this set up. However, before we start, I want to take you through where you are at with what we call the measurement marketing framework, where you go from marketing in the blind to being able to reliably grow those revenue and profit. So kind of not knowing what's working to being able to actually know what button to push, what lever to pull to get the results that you're looking for. And you go through those steps with plan, build, and launch. And inside your plan, you have to know what questions, information, and action you need to be able to do, then go through build, results, traffic, and story. And finally, in launch, you go through listen, forecast, and optimize. And you might be like, Julie, how in the world does this have anything to do with consent? Well, I wanted to show you that inside each one of these steps with plan, build, and launch, you are actually thinking and doing something with your consent. Obviously, in plan, depending on where you are and where you are, your audience is, you have to plan and figure out how you need to set up your consent. Then obviously in build, this is where you're setting it up and making sure it's set up correctly and you're getting the results in traffic and understanding that correctly. And then in forecast, or excuse me, in launch, where you're going to be forecasting and optimizing from listening to your dashboards and reports, this is the thing that I think most of you are scared for. Like, you're not like, how in the world am I going to use the data when there is less data? And that's what I want to walk you through a few minutes before I actually hand it over to Manisha. So you're going to take you through the how-to steps. I want to walk you through a little bit of strategy of it's going to be okay. And trust me, if you actually master this and you understand the skill before the rest of the world, you're going to be so much farther ahead along with us. So just we'll walk through it and see how you are going to be okay even with less data. All right, so here we are, and let's pretend that this group represents 1,000 users, and then for however it happens, you get 10,000 users, and you get 1,000 conversions. So whatever that is, it's purchase, or, opt-ins, or, video plays, whatever it is, you get 1,000 conversions, which makes it to be a 10% conversion rate. So this is the world before consent, where you have all your users, you're able to see this, you're able to go through, and let's say if you have some sort of forecast that says this is supposed to be a forecast of, let's say, 8 to 12%. So you are where you're supposed to be. You're good to go there. Just to increase traffic, that's your action you can do. You can, if you think back to that framework we just saw, you can listen, forecast, and optimize by looking at this. You're like, yep, we're where we're supposed to be. Let's go ahead and keep increasing that traffic. You're good. But what do we do in a world of consent where maybe it looks something like this, where you actually have 7,500 users? So you lost 25% of your traffic. And honestly, that is probably going to be very common with a lot of businesses, depending on where you're at and where your audience is at as well. And so how can you still make decisions with this? And I'm going to tell you a little secret here. For Google Analytics 4, it is not where you should be getting information that you should actually go to your bank statements for or your cart for. It's not going to tell you exactly how many sales you had. You shouldn't go to Google Analytics 4 for that. You should get it for your marketing trends and patterns. Stuff like this that we just saw up here. Like, okay, we saw this many users, we saw this many conversions, here's our conversion rate. We can make marketing decisions off of that. Absolutely. We can take actions off of that. So keeping that in mind, how can we still take marketing decisions off of that? And so this is where we're going to go through and like, okay, if we have 75 users, we could probably reasonably guess that we're still going to have, if we're needing to forecast, about 10% of those go through, if it's the same thing, obviously, in the world after consent. And we could still say, okay, we're probably going to have about 10% to go through, which then that turns into 750 conversions. So even though this number is technically not the A word we say, the accurate word, it is still useful because you're still able to see 10%. You're where you're supposed to be. But what if this forecast was actually something like 15 to 20% and you were only sitting at 10% conversion rate? Can you take action? Absolutely. Even though this isn't the actual number, meaning the accurate word, the A word, the actual number, let's say the actual number was 1,000, and you weren't able to see that here, you can still say, hey, we're not converting the way we're expecting to, so let's go ahead and optimize either the page, the ad, the email, whatever it is that you discover because of your measurement, that you can go ahead and optimize through that. So you still are able to take action even with less data. And if you need a separate workshop of like, how do I talk to my clients, my boss, my team about consent and still the strategy, like stuff like this, if you want us to dive in even deeper, let us know and we'll be happy to create that for you. Something we've actually been talking about for years, since before the GDPR stuff came through, and even now we've been talking about it in our master classes almost constantly. So if it's something you need, let us know. We'll be happy to get that out for you. We have another example here. Let's say this is actually 2,000 users, and this honestly might be the world for some of you in the future, the very near future, depending on where your business is. And so this means you only have 20% of your traffic. Can you still take marketing decisions off of this? And the answer is absolutely 1,000,000% yes. And let's say this isn't the same funnel. You have no idea that what the forecast should be. You have no idea. So let's do it the way that we would do in the world after consent with a brand new user journey. You would say, okay, we have 2,000 users, and then we would still measure our conversions. Let's say we have 500 conversions. We would have 500 conversions. We know that. And so then we would get our conversion rate. And so we can figure this out real quick. So we have a 25% conversion rate. And let's say this is for an opt-in, and it's a cold traffic opt-in, so you're thinking 20 to 30%, or excuse me, 30% opt-in rate. And if that is the case, if it's a cold traffic opt-in, then you are good to go. Increase traffic, you're golden. This is doing great. But what if it's a more of a warmer audience, and it's like a webinar that you're sending out to your email list, and you want them to get on a webinar? And then in that case, you might be 40 to 50% needs to be the conversion rate. And so you would know, hey, something is wrong. We're not getting the 40 to 50 that we're expecting. We're only getting 25%. We need to change our messaging, our page, or something needs to give for us to be able to do that. So if the question is, can you still take marketing action with only 20% of your traffic being reported into Google Analytics? The answer is absolutely yes. You just have to have a framework that's going to help guide you, again, knowing the forecast, knowing what actions you need to be able to take, and going through those steps constantly, you're going to be able to do that. And this is one of those things where if you don't understand this, you don't get this, you're going to get left behind. And so if you want a separate workshop, as I just mentioned, let us know. We'll be happy to go through that. But now it is time for Manisha to go through and guide us through all things of how to implement consent.
Now, let's talk about how we implemented consent at measurementmarketing.io, and we're also going to talk about how we implemented consent for our other brand, which is measuresummit.com. Alrighty, so we decided to go with a tool named CookieBot. It is one of Google's many consent management partners. We're not saying it's the best tool out there, guys. It was a great tool and it works for our business and our needs. There are many, many other tools, there's like a dozen of them or more right here that are partners. We know clients using CookieYes. We know clients using OneTrust. We know clients using Asana. There's a lot of different, options you have. So take a look at the tool, look at your or your client's business requirements, and pick the tool that works for you. Now, when we set up CookieBot, we went into CookieBot. The way it works is you set up a domain group, and then in the domain group, you set up all the domains that are part of that group, meaning all the domains that your client's going to interact with when they're on your site. For us, we have our website, which is measurementmarketing.io, but we also have an interaction with Infusionsoft whenever you go through an order form. So we had to include those domains in there because when a client is coming to your site, they're consenting with your cookies, but they're also consenting to the cookies that they pass through any of the third-party tools. Now, once we had our domains configured, we configured our banner. Now, for measuremarketing.io, we specifically only have our banner firing for people who visit from the EU. However, you have to figure this out based on your business needs. Do you need it to fire for other countries? Are there certain requirements you have or your client has in other countries? We kind of looked at our business requirements and said we only need it in the EU, but there could be very different requirements depending on you or your client's business. So once you have your banner fully configured, now you need to install your banner on the site. So I'm just going to backtrack here and I'm going to go to implementation. So Cookiebot and many of the tools out there have done a great job of documenting how you can implement consent on your site using their tool. So Cookiebot has a full guide down here. They also have installations with many of the website brands, right? So Shopify, WordPress. So the way it works is we did it through Tag Manager. You can totally do this using one of the plugins as well. So we're diving into here. I'm going to show you exactly how we did this. So we came into search and we installed, just going to show you, we installed a template, which is a Cookiebot template. The way you do that is you come into tags, click on here. See this discover more tag templates? You're going to click on that. And here we are. And you're going to look for the word Cookiebot. Now, many of the other tools have similar templates. I'm pretty sure if I type in cookie yes, there's another one, right? So you're going to find your consent tool tag template, okay? And it's going to walk you through exactly what to do. So I'm just going to close out of here to show you how we set up ours. So Cookiebot's instructions are really straightforward. You come into here, you grab this ID without the quotes, you copy it. I just hit Control-C on my keyboard, and I pasted it in here. That's your Cookiebot ID. Then what the other thing you have to do is kind of set what your default consent is. Meaning if the user comes to your site and a pop-up pops and they don't interact with it, what do you want default consent to be? In our case, we want it denied. Basically, until the EU user agrees to be measured or tracked, we're not going to start tracking you, okay? And we kept our trigger as fire at consent initialization. So this is what causes the pop-up to appear on the page. Now, many of us have heard there are two ways you can implement consent. There is consent mode basic and consent mode advanced. What is the difference when it comes to implementation? So the key difference when it comes to implementation is when your tags fire and if they're allowed to fire based on the consent granted. The way advanced works, to kind of give you an idea, is Cookiebot. So I'm going to go back to that tag. Cookiebot is going to fire our banner. Then our tags, let's talk about like our config tag. Our config tag will fire at initialization as well. However, depending on if consent is granted or denied, Google will make the decision on if it should fire this with cookies or, in so many words, cookieless, with unidentifiable information. That is Google's call. That is basically how advanced mode and consent works. You let Google kind of look at consent at the time and decide how it's going to fire the tag. Now, how is this different than basic? So I'm going to go get Measure Summit. So Measure Summit is our other brand. Now for Measure Summit, we have the same Cookiebot tag. I'm going to show that to you. So set up exactly the same way. It has a completely different banner that we've created in Cookiebot, and we set it same as denied. Now, we've done Measure Summit a little differently. For Measure Summit, we made the decision that we were going to implement basic. Now, how is that different when it comes to implementation? So we're going to pop into here. And we're going to actually pop into here, and I'm going to show you what we did here. So first you go to admin, you come down here, and under container settings, we enabled this additional setting, which is enable consent overview beta. Okay. Once we enable that, there's two changes that happen in our tag space. We got this shield here, and then for any of our tags, I'm going to come into here. I'm going to look for the word config to show it to you in the config tag. Pop into here. Okay. So you notice something different? We have this section now called consent settings. What is this saying? It is saying that this tag is only allowed to fire when require additional consent for tag to fire analytic storage. What does that mean? Is if a user did not grant us analytic storage, this tag will not fire. It's kind of like a trigger in so many words. It's like that stop sign that says, hey, wait, did you grant us access? Did you grant us the ability to track analytic storage. If a user doesn't grant us that, this tag will not fire, okay? The final thing we do for basic is only fire this tag once consent has been updated. So at the time the user has interacted with the pop-up and accepted or denied consent, then this tag will fire, but it'll only fire if analytic storage is granted. That is the key difference between basic and advanced. We are very excited to learn how you guys are implementing consent on your site and are here if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for that, Manisha. And for you that are watching, what is your one thing? I hope it was something that, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought. I just have to go slow and make sure I do all the steps, and then I'll be good to go. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We love to keep you up to date on all things consent, as well as all things measurement and things you need to know about. And I'm also going to give you a little bit of a confession. That video that you just watched with Manisha is technically a video she recorded and posted for our members inside of what we call our winner circle. It's an entire separate Slack community, and she posted it about a week ago so our members could get that access, because we wanted to hurry up and get it out there. And I decided, you know what, this is such good information, I wanted to give it to the rest of the world and to our audience and just make it an official video. And so that's why I'm wrapping it into an intro and outro and gave you a little bit more of that strategy there. So if that is something you need, if you want to have that access to the winner circle, where we have it's technically what we call our expanded coaching and support, or winner circle, which is that Slack community where you can ask the community questions, the instructor questions. You want to ask an instructor support, where you can privately ask questions to us, or as well as a weekly group coaching call with your instructors and some of your people that are in community. If you need that because you need to kind of have hand holding for this world of measurement with consent and other things that keep changing, definitely look into the Measure Marketing Academy and see if it is a good fit for you. Obviously, it might not be for everyone, but if it is something you need, we are there to help and guide you. So just reach out and let us know if you have any questions on that. But otherwise, you've watched Implement Consent for Google Analytics 4 in minutes. We'll see you next time.